Welcome to Shamrock Reddit Stories, entitled People Edition, where an entitled woman runs down and kills a grandpa with her car and tries to sue the grandma for mental anguish. Yeah, you heard that right. This one's from KTB 1962, and it's called, I Met My First Karen Today. I had to return something from Amazon to a store today. Not a big deal, as I was out and about anyway. It was a massive parking lot because there are a lot of huge stores that share, like a certain club. I was expecting to have to drive around to find a spot, but I got lucky and see a car up ahead of me, third spot from the end, with its backup lights on. I drive up to it, I get in position, flip on the turn signal, the guy pulls out, so I go to pull in. Just then, this woman turns into the row and blares her horn at me while flashing her lights. I ignore her and pull in. As I get out, she's yelling out of her window, saying that she saw the spot first. Now I'm a butthole for stealing her spot, etc., etc. I shake my head and just walk into the store to do what I need to do. It gets better. As I'm waiting in line to return my item, she catches up to me. She starts yelling at me again. I continue to ignore. I really was not in the mood to deal with her crap, so I didn't take the bait because I really didn't want to make matters worse. I basically said, whatever, leave me alone. She then begins to poke me in the back because I won't turn to face her. Now I will readily admit that I am a hothead sometimes. I can really blow my lid at times, but this time I kept my cool. I barely moved to look at her and said very loudly and very sternly, "Stop effing poking me." She continues to yell, but is finally interrupted by a store employee who intercedes. Bunch of back and forth, with her accusing me of stealing her parking spot, and so on. Finally, the employee gets her to shut up, and then he turns to me. He asks me if I want to press assault charges. She turned ashen white when I said yes, because I had enough of her. It was worth the extra hour plus to watch her eventually taken away in cuffs, all because of a frickin' parking spot. At least I got my item returned, and the whiskey sour that I had this evening was even sweeter. Can a cocktail that has the word sour in its title be sweet? I don't think that I've ever had a whiskey sour. This one is from Far Attitude 2764, and it's called Crazy Karen Attacks Me Over a Toy. Sweet karma shows up. Now, I never thought I would run across an actual Karen like those who I read about here, but yesterday I was proved wrong. So wrong. A bit of backstory. I have a 5-year-old girl who is best friends with our neighbor's daughter, who is a special needs child. The two are inseparable. My wife had bought our daughter a toy a few weeks ago as a reward for doing all of her chores and being awarded as Student of the Week in her kindergarten class. Our daughter immediately took it over to the neighbor's house, and the two girls loved to play with it. It's one of those toys that comes with accessories, slime, stickers, etc. Well, since then, this particular toy has been featured on a very popular morning talk show and is now pretty hard to find. My daughter's friend's birthday is the day after Thanksgiving, and my daughter asked me if we could buy her best friend the same toy as her gift. Well, we couldn't say no to her request for her best friend, so we started looking online to see if we could find one. After a few days of no luck, one of the very popular, more bougie of the big box stores had some in stock at a store about 30 minutes away. I hit the road to try and get my hands on one before they were all gone. This is what happened when I got there, and I still can't believe that it happened. I got to the store, grabbed a shopping cart, and went straight to the toy department. I looked around for a few minutes before I finally saw the toy that I was after. There was only one left, and I grabbed it and put it in my cart. I was so glad that I finally found one. I started to walk away to continue shopping when I heard a voice behind me say, excuse me, but that toy is mine. I put it down and was coming right back for it. Do you mind?" I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry. I have been looking for this toy as a gift for a very special little girl, and it was on the shelf. So, I'm sorry, but no, I'm going to buy it." She instantly shot daggers at me with her eyes and said, "Excuse me? I was here first, and I need it more than you. I have a customer who ordered it, and I need it now. So please hand it over." That's when it struck me that she's a reseller and had promised something she didn't have. At that point, I was pretty much like, "Oh well, that's not my problem, but maybe they have more in the back. You should ask someone who works here." Then I went about my way to finish my shopping. As I was walking away, she snipped, "You're a real jerk, you know that?" I sarcastically responded, "Maybe, but I got what I came for. Have an awesome day," and walked away. I made my way to the laundry detergent aisle and quickly forgot about the woman. A few minutes later, I grabbed some detergent and dryer sheets. As I stopped to check what else was on my list, the same woman entered the aisle and quickly said, "Oh, there you are. Listen, I asked an employee and they said there aren't any in the back and they don't know when more are coming in. I would appreciate it if you would do the right thing and just give it back to me before I find a manager and tell him you took it out of my hands." I quickly responded, "Huh? What are you talking about? This toy was on the shelf and nobody else was around when I picked it up. So please leave me alone. You can't have it, and that's it." I tried to walk out of the aisle when this crazy Karen stepped in front of my cart, reached into my cart, and tried to take the toy. I quickly pulled the cart back and said, "What is your problem, lady? Get away from me." She tried to grab it again, but this time I put my hand on the toy before she could grab it. She then dug her nails into my arm before I smacked her hand away with a loud, "What the frick, lady? Get away from me." This is when the crazy Karen act went into overdrive. She instantly started screaming for help at the top of her lungs. "Help! Help! He's attacking me! Help me, somebody!" Naturally, a bunch of people quickly came over to see what was going on. And there I was, a 6'3" man with tattoos, a shaved head, and a beard, standing there as she threw herself on the floor. Yes, she actually threw herself on the floor, and screaming for help. I thought to myself, this is going to end badly for me. Two employees were a couple of aisles over and came running. Now there were a few people and the employees looking at this Karen on the ground, pleading for help and screaming for someone to call the police. The employee asked what happened while helping her up from the floor, and she immediately lied and said that I attacked her and took her items from her cart. I quickly stated that this crazy lady is lying and she attacked me. Then she threw herself on the floor to get me in trouble. A manager shows up and asks what happened while Karen is standing there with crocodile tears, saying I assaulted her over her toy. I quickly denied the false accusation and demanded that the police be called. The manager had the police called and I waited right there. The lady had a crowd of people around her, consoling her and looking at me like I'm some sort of woman beater. All the while, she is telling everyone around her what a monster I am and that she intends to press full charges against me for assault. After about 10 to 15 minutes, two police officers show up and start to ask questions about what happened. I explained what had happened from beginning to end, and she told her twisted fairy tale. The officers asked if the security cameras had a shot of the area. We were escorted to the manager's office, and while one officer reviews the footage with the manager, the other officer asked for our IDs and stepped out of the office, more than likely to do a warrant check, I assumed. This is when glorious karma shows up. After a couple of minutes of the officer reviewing the camera footage and her continued lies about what happened, he asks Karen, "Ma'am, I'm only going to ask this once. Would you like to change your story about what happened?" I instantly smile from ear to ear. Karen said, "What are you talking about? He attacked me and I want him arrested. The officer responded, "Ma'am, that's not happening." He then turned to me and asked if I wanted to press charges for assault. My answer, frick yes. Karen went pale as a ghost. Then she went on a tirade. Just then the second officer came back into the office, handed me back my ID, whispered something to the other officer, and then asked Karen to stand up. He put her hands behind her back and arrested her for an outstanding felony warrant, along with today's arrest charge. What an awesome outcome. The manager apologized to me for all the trouble as Karen was let out of the office in cuffs. The officer photographed the scratches on my arm for evidence, gave me a copy of the report for court, and wished me a nice rest of my day. The manager even gave me a $50 gift card that I used to pay for my purchase and went about my merry way. All this over a toy and self-entitlement. Okay, the Karen has an outstanding felony warrant and she tries to pull a stunt like this? It seems like she must not have known about the warrant. Is that possible? Or did she just think that the police would not check for outstanding warrants? I tend to believe that criminals aren't too smart to begin with. Seamus agrees with me. This one is from Ding50, and it's called Entitled Woman Kills Grandpa, Then Sues Grandma for Mental Anguish. Wait, what? This is a true story that happened to my family back in the mid-90s, back when I was a teenager. I hadn't forgotten about it, and it just occurred to me how appropriate this story would be for this subreddit. This takes place in Southern California. My grandfather had a stroke in the early 90s and mostly recovered from it with a little bit of physical consequences. His doctor recommended physical activity to help continue his recovery, so he used to go walking every day around their neighborhood. One day, he's crossing the street and he's hit by a woman in her 30s driving a sedan who ran the red light. He was taken to the hospital and he survived for a few days before he succumbed to his injuries. The police found the woman 100% at fault and asked my grandmother if she wanted to press charges against her. My dad and my uncle argued that she should, but my grandmother told them that it wouldn't change what happened and the woman who hit him would be suffering enough with the memory of her actions. Fair enough. Everyone starts moving on with their lives. 6 months later, my grandmother is served with a civil lawsuit. The woman who killed her husband was suing my grandma for mental anguish, as the trauma of her having killed him was so bad, she needed money from his estate to make it better. Luckily, my grandparents made a lot of friends during their lives, and one of their best friends was a lawyer. My grandparents had done a lot for him and his wife. So he basically took the documents from her and told her, "I'm going to take care of this. It's not going to cost you anything, and I don't want you to worry about it. It's my turn to take care of you." We never heard anything else from the woman or her lawyer, though my grandparents' lawyer friend later talked to my dad and his brothers and let them know some more details he found out about the situation that we hadn't heard. He had gotten the case thrown out, but in addition to running the red light, the woman had been driving on a suspended license and had been driving without her glasses. She had a corrective lens restriction on her license. The DMV had taken her license as a result of the incident, but since my grandmother didn't press charges, she never faced any criminal consequences. And then she repaid my grandmother for showing compassion and kindness by filing a lawsuit against her. My grandmother was extremely lucky to have a family friend who was a lawyer and who was willing to handle things at no cost. For many other people, it would have cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just to get the case thrown out. Seamus and I agree that this has been a long video, folks, and he has advised me to wrap it up. So I'll just say, until next time.